Greetings! Today we're here to talk about my history with hallucinations, how I've managed those hallucinations, and dream therapy. Spoiler alert, dream therapy. So let's talk about it. And before we begin, I am your host, the Dreaming Turtle, and this little dude right over here is my co-host, Little Mr. P. He's waiting on some treats. Should we go ahead and give you some treats now, little dude? Alright, I got you some treats, little dude. I got you some treats, little dude. If they'll pour out of the thing, I'll give you a little bit more. There you go. You can have plenty, because you is my little dudes. Little P, eating old treats. Are you going to save a few for me, little guy? Are you going to save some for me? Maybe I'd like to have some treats once in a while. Can I have one of your treats? I'm just kidding, dude. I'm not an asshole. Or at least I'm not always an asshole. I try not to be. And today we're going to smoke our last strawberry ice pre-roll straight from Greenleaf Medical in Richmond, Virginia. This stuff is pretty gravy, baby. It's white flour gravy, as we like to say on the live stream. So let's get lit up and begins. As Mr. P takes a little treat break. Come on, get lit, baby. So, we're actually going to start off from the time I was born, because it's sort of pertinent. See, I was born essentially walking between the worlds. And what I mean by that, I'll explain both things, is that by walking between the worlds, I mean either between life and death, or just between states of consciousness. In this case, or at least during this time period, the former. And how was I walking between the worlds was because I was always sick. As an infant, I had a severe case of asthmatic bronchitis. As a matter of fact, my mom had to get rid of the cat that she had at the time, who had just had kittens, because the dander was going to kill me, or was killing me. And so then, up to a year old, after that sort of cleared up, I got my first pneumonia, and I've been having pneumonias pretty much every year since then, up until a couple years ago. And I say that that's pertinent because sort of pertinent because I don't know that had any influence on my hallucinations over the years or not, but it's extremely possible, and either way, that puts me there to what I was explaining in the pilot episode, or whatever you want to call it, of the Stoney Shamans Corner, where I explained that I didn't really choose to be a shaman exactly. I was born into this. Because of that, I was born sort of walking between the worlds, as we say. So I started having really weird dreams, all the way back to, as far back as I can remember. Probably being about 3 or 4 years old. And I'll give you some examples. I had a dream one time where I kept trying to wanting to walk to the 7-Eleven on my own as a toddler, basically. My mom kept explaining it, no, because you're going to get lost. And I guess something about that stuck in my head. So I had this dream where I attempted to walk to the 7-Eleven and I got lost. And I ended up walking and I was searching and searching and searching and just couldn't find my way. And then I ended up in what was actually my backyard, but it wasn't my backyard anymore, and it had completely changed. And there was like these horse stalls, and somebody helped me up on one of the horses, and then I was riding the horse around. And it's not completely relevant to this, but it is. It's just a weird dream. I'm just setting up my my state between the worlds, because the dreaming mind is completely relevant to the hallucinating mind. And another dream that I had, and one that always sticks with me, well, actually, I'll tell you the one about the sledding first, because that was a really, really weird experience, because I was with my family, and we were sledding down this place we called Suicide Hill, which was a big hill inside of Gypsy Hill Park's golf course. And so it snowed, and we were all up there sledding, and somebody was warning me about being real careful when I got to the bottom, and I thought, no, I'm good. I just want to get on the sleigh and go down. And so I sledded down the big hill, and then I got to the bottom, and I just flew off of a cliff. And when I woke up, I was actually like several feet above my bed, and woke up actually like falling down into my body. And it's tricky to say one way or the other about that, just because the dreaming mind is a really, really, really weird place. On the other hand, I still, to this day, am insistent that, that wasn't part of the dream of me falling back into my body, because I fell back into my body. I got up, and then I got dressed and went to school and all of that. So, but that was years later. I only tell you that one first because that was, a little bit less heavy than the one I'm about to tell you. The third one that I was going to tell you about was, I don't know exactly how old I was, but I know I was damn young, because, the Leggett's department store was still downtown Stanton. And that was, I was definitely at least still a toddler. I don't think I could have been any older than like maybe 5 or 6 at that point. So I had this dream that it was around Halloween time or something, and we were shopping at Leggett's department store, and we were over by the escalators, and this witch jumped out. And I often refer to this, so if anybody's watching this video and has ever wondered when I talk about the witch of Leggett's department store, this is what it is, because she stuck with me all of this time. But, she jumps out, and, like a Halloween gag or something, and just scares the mortal loving shit out of me. And she realizes that she scared me, and, so she's trying to calm me down, and she makes me an offer to help calm me down, and says, well, why don't you come in here in the dressing room with me, and we'll trade underwear, and, help you feel better. And, as I said, the dreaming mind is a weird fucking place. The dreaming mind is a really, really weird place. But so I go into the dressing room with her, and it's just this huge ball of light, and that's it. I wake up. Um, you know, I have a lot of different theories about that dream, which I won't get into because that's a very, very tricky, complicated dream to talk about. But again, I want to set up. Again, I want to set up. Why I felt so naturally taken to the dream therapy. But I had my first hallucination probably around, I want to say around age 6 or 7. So it was after the accident. Probably would have been after the accident. Um, but I was laying in my mom's bed, not quite asleep, and I don't know that this is my first hallucination, but it's the oldest one I can really remember. There was actually times when I was, um, you know, before the accident, I know for sure that I don't remember, but Mom told me about where we were woken up by the train in the middle of the night, and I asked her what that beautiful music was. But I can't really say that that's necessarily a hallucinating thing, but I digress. The first one that I know was a hallucination. I was falling asleep, but I wasn't quite asleep, and I just opened my eyes real quick and shut them again, and suddenly I could hear David Lee Roth singing in my ear. Aluda banga, aluda banga, aluda banga. And, I have no idea what the fuck aluda banga is, but, that actually became my very first attempt at writing a song, based on that dream. And that is one area that the hallucinations had been beneficial to me in a way, and able to actually, turn some of that into something positive because up until about the time I got my first paper route, any hallucinations that I had were, not really scary stuff. It was music usually, and there'd be the occasional sound that wasn't there, or somebody's voice that wasn't there, but it was never anything threatening or anything like that. So we get to, I guess I was around 12 or so, and or no, I would have been closer to 13. I would have probably been 13 because it was shortly before the time I met Samantha. But that's a whole nother wave and a whole nother ocean, or bottle of worms, whatever you call it. But yeah, so I'm delivering papers, and I don't know if it's like the stress of the paper route or other trauma that I was going through at the time. I don't really know. They blamed it on the medication I was taking, Silert, at the time, which maybe, as we talked about in a previous video, but I'm not convinced that it was the Silert because, again, I had hallucinations before this. I had hallucinations after this. So, take what you want from that. But, so I'm delivering papers and I start seeing this face in windows. And not like different faces and, shit like that. Just, like cloud gazing kind of thing, not like that at all. Because I'm seeing a specific person in all these different windows. And it's just fucking nuts. And it was driving me crazy. It was literally driving me crazy. And so I ended up going into the hospital for it. And they took me off of the Silert and everything, and I just believed what they believed, it was the Silert. But, a few more years pass through, and I start having more and more, we'll just say, threatening and unsettling type of hallucinations. I don't want to get too much in specifics just because, some of that's really personal stuff and, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying. But there was a lot of stuff that was really hard to deal with. And I don't, they say that, well, the thing is that the hallucinations is kind of, where they're coming from is the really big question. Because, and I don't mean in terms of what they are, because in terms of what they are, at least now, I think I got a pretty good grip on that, as we'll get to. But it was, it's a thing of, was it a result of the brain injury? Was it a result of the sickness? The pneumonias and all the stuff when I was a baby. Was it the mold growing at the house, around the house and in the basement of the house that I was growing up in? Or was I simply schizophrenic, And somewhere the blame started going more in that direction, to where I was diagnosed with a whole bunch of different stuff, from ADHD to bipolar to schizoaffective disorder and that borderline personality disorder and whatever. And I think that was a really big miss, swing and a miss. Like we talked about before, diagnosing mental health is a guessing game. It's an educated guessing game. And a lot of times there's a lot of different things that have the same symptoms, but treating the root of that symptom is completely different. And with the brain injury, there, you manage the symptoms and there is no real magic pill. And with hallucinations and psychotic tendencies, there is a magic pill, sort of. But that magic pill comes at a price. It really does. There's a lot of side effects, really nasty side effects. There are, in some cases, it can actually end up making the mental health consumer worse than they already were. And the stakes are high with that shit, And take it from somebody who's been on the inside of a psychiatric institution plenty of times. When you see people pacing the halls, walking back and forth, and, back in the old days, the good thing about Thorazine was that, it started pushing things like lobotomies and shock treatments and things like that out of the way. But, Thorazine was bad. And then, later we got things like Halidol and Risperidol and, what I was on 23 years up until, what has it been, like several months ago now, the Seroquel. And the Seroquel's the only one that never gave me this side effect. I mean, among antipsychotics, but, the doctors don't really tell you about this side effect, and it's not really talked about a whole lot, and that is a thing that we call akathisia. And, I used to call it being a slave in my own skin. Whereas, you sit down and you have this immediate feeling that you need to get up and move around. And I talked about this in the charter scam video too. But, it's worth reiterating again, and you get up and you walk around, and then the opposite happens. You feel like you need to sit down and rest. So you sit down and you rest, and then you feel like you need to get up and move around, and it's always just back and forth, and you can't be comfortable with anything. I went into a hospital one time, literally on, I think it was actually Geodon, and I had a sinus infection and a cold, and I wasn't even stoned, and I wasn't, drugged up on anything else other than the Geodon going in there. And, all I wanted to do was run out of that hospital and just go far, far away and crawl into a cave somewhere and fucking die. But, I digress, because that's not the, well, I mean, it is pertinent to this video, but, I want to be clear, too, that before we even get to my hallucination management system, that it's not a substitute for chemically treating something. Because sometimes things need multiple treatments, and sometimes some people need physical drugs to treat their illness. And, in my case, it's, this works better for the most part than any of those, definitely the antipsychotics and the antidepressants and, their ADHD medication and all of that bullshit. This has worked better and been safer, and, I like the way that I feel. I like the way that I feel. But, my point is that it's not a substitute for medication. But it is a management system. Because when you're having these hallucinations and, you're going to take your hallucinations literally. Most people are a little more aware of how dreams speak, but what most people don't think about is that hallucinations are really just a livid dream, or a lucid dream. Whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry. Words are not my best suit. Words are not my best suit. But, and it's a little bit more complicated to analyze than a typical dream, just because it is in more of a lucid state. You're awake. But it's the same part of the brain. And, I was coasting around on these hallucinations without really understanding any of that stuff until, I guess it was about 98 or 99, somewhere, and I was in and out of jail, in and out of hospitals, and, generally I was doing good, but doing really fucking bad, if that makes any sense, and, it wasn't looking good, and, we've already talked about me going to prison and everything. This is just a little while before me going to prison, I went through all of that not knowing what they were, It's just, I knew that most of it wasn't real, but, I could tell most of the time the difference between a hallucination and reality. But, no real rhyme or reason to it for the most part, if that makes sense. And that'll be the title of this video, if that makes sense. Until I was starting to read more and study more New Age stuff, and I started studying Wicca and dream psychology basically about the same time. The first book on dream psychology that I picked up was actually a new age author, Tony Crisp. It was just called The Dreaming Dictionary. And I picked up to it right away. And, it really started the the connection between my dreaming dreams to hallucinations. Um, it took me a little bit longer to make that connection, but uh, as far as my dreaming dreams, when I started seeing everything as symbols and metaphors, and seeing another person in my dream, and understanding that sometimes that other person in my dream is me. It's me. It's all me. There's was a dude that I was in prison with at Stanton CC. Obviously, I'm not gonna name drop and blah 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 and tell too much of his unauthorized biography or whatever. But he had a dream where uh, he stabbed his bunkmate in the eye with a pencil, and at this time I had already started, been fairly well into my studies, and that was an easy one to pick up, because when you look at that on the surface, that's pretty fucking troubling, isn't it? Now imagine you seeing that in a lucid state while you're actually awake. But look at it the same way, because what I told about him about his dream is that, what did I know about this guy? Well, not a whole lot, but one of the things that I knew is that he loves to write. And, so it was an easy call that the other dude in his dream is him. And that, there's something about the other dude that he sees in himself that he doesn't like, maybe deep down on a subconscious level. And, so maybe what you ought to do is stab that with a pencil. I mean, not a person, but, onto a piece of paper and write about it. That's your brain, telling you something, but you have to decode it, and the first thing you have to really understand about dream therapy is that, when you're looking at, all of these different symbols and metaphors and everything, sometimes there's going to be things that are going to universally be representative of the same things among most people. And then there's other things that are going to be deeply personal to that individual. So some people might say, oh, well, that just shows you, dream therapy is bullshit, but it's not. It's like this. If you grew up in a house all of your life with a basement and an upstairs, then dreaming about the, first floor of the house, could be your feelings about the present, unless it's a house that you no longer live in. Then that gets a little bit more complicated in looking, backward. But, generally, if you're living in that house and you're dreaming you're on the present level, then, yeah. Whereas dreaming about the basement could indicate your feelings and things from the past and things that are behind you or under you. And dreaming about the upstairs could be your feelings or, whatever about the future. And so what about somebody that, grew up in a hut or, maybe a, what do you call it, a straw hat or whatever, but, or just a one-story house or apartment like this, if that's all you've ever been around, then you might instead look toward your feelings about the future or the past in terms of lower plane, upper plane, if that makes sense, like uphill, downhill. Um, I'm not going to make this a big lesson about dream psychology, but one person might dream about a snake and think that the snake is, deeply sexual, that the snake could represent sexual feelings or whatever, the Freudian way. Or it could be a person that's terrified of snakes and represent fear. Or it could be a person who loves snakes. Katie, I'm looking at you, girl. I'm looking at you. And it's, indicates feelings of happiness, of joy. Now, the way that I was first studied that in was, I think it was Tony Crisp's book, where it said, imagine somebody who grew up in a castle and they dream about a castle, it's probably going to seem like something dark and dusty and, whatever. But if you're somebody who grew up, watching castles with fancy people in it from the courtyard below, or the village below, whatever you want to call it, it's going to look like something fancy, something grand. And, but, that's the important thing first thing to understand when doing it. But, so I had unwittingly, already been journaling my hallucinations. And actually, to this day, probably nobody really knew about that. But I used to hide my hallucinations in poetry. Just cryptic things, and I would actually tie one hallucination to something related to that hallucinations in like completely different poems. And I don't know if all of that poetry even, well, definitely not all of that poetry. I don't know how much of that poetry has survived at all. But once I finally started making that connection between these hallucinations and my dreams, that's where everything really changed. And that's when I started trying to do more of, just straight up dream journaling and just talking to the journal about my feelings in the dream and, in a more express fashion that I didn't have to remember my own code, kind of thing. And as I started, actually looking at it, and what I found was that my ability to distinguish the difference between a hallucination and reality got stronger the more that I did it. And it was so much easier actually looking at troubling, harsh, whatever you want to call it, type of hallucinations and put them into a non-threatening light. Like the light that, the language that your brain is actually speaking in. It's the dreaming mind, because the dreaming mind is a weird fucking place. It's symbolic. It's metaphorical. You just got to watch out for those literalisms, if you know what I'm saying. Because again, going back to my friend's dream, while I was locked up, having a hallucination of attacking another person or something, is not your brain telling you to go hurt another person. Obviously, what it's actually telling you is, in his situation, was right about it. And again, I just want to reiterate, that wasn't a hallucination that he had. That was a dream. But, you can use that same code to look at hallucinations and understand them the better, for the way that they actually speak. And I know I've turned off a lot of people because I have a real problem with communication. And I tried to communicate that a lot in years former when I was still involved heavily with like the CSB and the clubhouse and all of that stuff. But most of the people, as soon as they hear the idea, I think, of using the symptom as part of the treatment, it kind of scares people off, And like I said, I wasn't good at communicating that, and I was still kind of stuck in this world of coding things into songs and not, just not doing a good job of explaining it. And, I'm just saying, that this worked for me. This helped me a lot. And I don't think that it's really going to bring harm on another person for trying it out the way that people think that it is, because you're not empowering hallucinations. You're empowering your reason. You're exercising your logical thinking. And I know, yes, sometimes people are seriously lacking in logical thinking. I was severely lacking in logical thinking for most of my life. I've been on this like developmental delay my entire 44 years. But the very first thing that it does, 100, is look at the hallucinations in a non-threatening way. And it's not a super complicated therapy as long as you have somebody there to help guide the consumer through the process of learning it. It's not like you just tell the patient, consumer, whatever, to go study it on their own. No, you sit there and, ask them, well, what was the hallucination about? How did you feel? What else was going on around you? And, and then explain, or attempt to decipher the language of that dream, of hallucination, And again, I do want to reiterate that I'm not talking about a solution. I'm talking about a treatment. It's a system. It's management. Because, I've never stopped having hallucinations, but, I don't think I've had a really super bad hallucination in like at least 2 or 3 decades now, Yeah, probably about 2 decades, because around the time I was coming out of prison, even through my, getting strung out on meth and all that shit in 2002, I still really didn't have much in the way of bad hallucinations. And, people credited that to the Seroquel. And I'm not even saying that the Seroquel didn't help, but, here I am off of the Seroquel, and, it's an old saying. It's, are you going to give the power to fear? Because that's what looking at hallucinations looks like, or at least those types of hallucinations look like from the perspective of the person having the hallucination. It's fear. And I'm here to tell you, baby, 100, fear's not what you have to get from it, That hallucination is trying to tell you something. 100. That hallucination is trying to tell you something, but it's not what it seems. It's a metaphor. I mean, remember that your brain is the command center for the body. And a lot of times things are, you know, a lot of things, sometimes that the brain is trying to tell you through the form of hallucinations and dreams aren't really even necessarily that deep philosophically or psychologically. Sometimes it's, you know, you ate a pint of ice cream the night before, and your stomach's not too happy about it. You didn't cook the chicken long enough, or you got salamanders or something like that, And go back to one of my dreams that I had while I was in prison, where I think I've talked about this dream already, but where I was running with all my friends through a field, and then we all just like leapt up into the sky and just started flying around, soaring, until I realized that how the fuck do I land? Like, how am I gonna land? And then everybody else just disappears. And by the time I finally figure out how to land, like I'm in the same area, but everything has changed. Stores are in different places. People have grown older, and it's just super crazy. But that's really a very basic, easy dream to analyze. That's almost to the point of being self-evident. And to me, that was the beauty for me looking at dream psychology, because once you understand the process of it, that things like this become almost self-evident, because it's my feelings about I was only gone for 13.4 whatever months, but it felt like I was leaving everything behind forever, and then coming home, and everything had changed. It was mimicking my real life. But it's just representative of your feelings, or my feelings in that situation. And I hope that this doesn't come off too much as preachy either, because I don't really mean to be preachy. I just it's a management system that really worked for me, and I think that if it would help another person, you should absolutely try it, because it's literally just dream psychology. So I haven't had a bad type hallucination in probably 20 years now, and I'm not hallucination free still, but a lot of the stuff that I hear now is more back to the stuff when I was a kid, that I'm hearing music playing in the distance that isn't there, and things like that. It's, almost like my hallucinations are, I guess, receding, not, fading away completely at all, just receding. And that feels good, I've still, in my mental health struggle, I still got a long way to go, 100, just like everybody else, that my struggle doesn't end until the day that I end. And, that's true of everybody. And that's not something to be depressed about either, because that's just what it is. And, it just stresses the importance of trying to put more positive energy into the good times that we have. and to treasure those moments and savor them shits, because we are very finite. And, again, people can, like me, can hallucinate from a whole range of things. There's so many conditions out there that can lead to hallucinations, way more than most people think. And medications vary greatly. So, you've got to find, as far as medication, you've got to find the medication that works for you, and make sure that you do your best to make sure you're treating the right thing. If cannabis works for you, then use it. Because, cannabis has, the combination of cannabis and dream psychology in my life, and my examination or observation, I guess I should say, of the wheel, has completely changed my life, in that, not for the physical things, but just my understanding, if that makes sense. It's given me, I've really come to that, I guess, peace of mind. And cannabis is a beautiful medicine if it works for you. And it's not for everybody. 100. It's not for everybody. But I think it's the way you should treat things like anything really, just about, or anything that cannabis can treat, I think should always be the first option before you try any of the other stuff. But, I won't rant and rave about all of that, but, I'm just saying, what is the level of harm? In everything we do, we want to, stress the importance of medicine, and understand that sometimes that medicine isn't medication. If that makes sense. Again, the title of this video, if that makes sense. Medication is great in many examples, and for what it does. But, think about completely different subject, obviously, but pleurisy. Pleurisy was a death sentence, like 100 years ago. And today, you take Advil for a few days and you're good to go. And the same is true with psychotic disorders in general. And, but we can't let that be the only medicine, because medicine is also examining ourselves and analyzing things around us and exercising our analytical and logical minds to examine the things around us and our own experiences, and to try to make something of that, if by whatever definition you personally have. Medicine is all around us. Medicine is in laughter. I'm looking at you, Patch Adams, my dude. I'm looking at you. Sometimes medicine is laughter, and sometimes medicine is the best laughter, or whatever. Whatever Robin Williams said. And for me, that's just one more piece of medicine to treat myself with. And I also want to reiterate again that, I was able to figure this out pretty quickly on my own. For some people, you might need a professional around. The book was enough for me, but, don't be afraid to ask for help with dreams, but watch out for people that want to charge you money to know about your dreams. And, people with alternative agendas will just say, whether it be financial or, religious or whatever, but if you've got a good psychologist or psychiatrist, ask them about it. Because like anything, it's always good to have somebody there to teach you the ropes of anything in life. Am I right? You know, Chief from, that one place, he knows where I know him from. If he was to ever see this video, you led me there too, baby. I ran with them bulls, baby. I ran with them bulls. And dreamed my turtle. I dreamed my turtle. But the thing is just, the biggest thing is that if you deal with, the bad type hallucinations on a regular occurrence, or, even just at any uncomfortable level, don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm lucky enough to, have a good pair of doctors now. I've had some really shitty doctors over the years, and I've had some that were, but I've had some really, really great ones too, and my current doctors are both really, really good. And I'm probably a hard patient to work with, 100, but, I'm just saying, don't be afraid to reach out to somebody, because we're taught most of our lives to repress things. And to, especially as men, we're taught to repress our feelings a lot. And it's not good. I've spent probably half of my teenage years just trying to shield myself from showing any emotion, and that really bit me in the ass in the long run. It really fucking did. And I didn't want to face the things that I had to face. And I didn't want to take the medication, because I knew that the medications they were giving me was, bullshit. It was, the antidepressants, just killed my creativity. And, the antipsychotics gave me akathisia, except for the Seroquel, but then the Seroquel ended up swelling me up to 330 pounds, and, I'm off of the Seroquel. I'm still floating around, I think, 265, something like that. And, if you can't talk about, I can't even be mad at somebody for not wanting to talk to somebody about it, because I've been misunderstood before, and I know what it's like to try to explain something that sounds really, really scary to somebody who's probably gonna, want to throw you straight into a hospital if you tell them about it, even though you didn't do anything wrong. You just experienced a really scary hallucination. So, the problem is that sometimes in those situations we do need to be hospitalized, and, get the help. The problem really comes after that of, relying too heavily on the medication and forgetting about the medicine. If you feel what I'm cooking, if you feel the gravy that I'm cooking. But if you don't feel comfortable enough talking about it to anybody, put it in a journal. Do like I did if you have to, and disguise it into poetry, into music, or find some way to channel that without actually creating any harm. And again, if my hallucination management can work for you, I really do encourage you to go and, read up on, the Dreaming Dictionary by Tony Crisp was, a really good one for me. And there's a whole lot of books out there, and Some of them are better than others, we'll say, but it's as long as you understand and remember those core concepts I taught you earlier, which is, that uh, some symbols and metaphors, some things that appear, um, are generally going to be universal amongst most people, and some things are going to be completely different among individuals. So, put what you know, yourself, and sometimes that makes it more tricky because, it's just, but just try to find some creative outlet to get it at, and I really encourage you to, read up on dream psychology. And, different things are going to be different for different people. And sometimes that dreams don't have super important meanings, Sometimes it's like my stomach growling right here, I haven't eaten anything today, so I could have I'm not, but I could have a hallucination right now that's really just trying to tell me, hey, maybe you ought to go fry some eggs up on a skillet. But it's most scary, and if you've been through this, you know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. Is the scariest part of it is when something pops up and you don't know that it's not real, like, where some people might see, what was it, the Psycho Myco video, where he opened up the toilet and there was a brain swirling around in there, and, but seeing random things like that, or turning around and seeing a big demonic figure and then turning the other way around and then looking back and then realizing there was nothing there, or hearing a loud bang right beside you, or somebody yelling in your ear, but there's nobody there. The scariest thing is not knowing if that's a hallucination or reality. And anything that you can do to help increase your awareness of those things. And John Nash, had his own little system there. If you watch The Beautiful Mind, there toward the end, where when he met new people, he would confirm with other people that he knew were real to, confirm with them, hey, is this dude here? Is this dude beside me? Is this dude beside me? And either yes, no, yes, increase your awareness. And there's no guarantee that, you're going to make the bad type hallucinations go away. Again, sometimes medication needs to be coupled with medicine, that's what I've been sitting here doing, and every single video that I shoot, is medicine, or medication rather, it's all medicine, baby. That'll be my new saying. It's all medicine, baby. So what do you say we celebrate a little self-awareness and make a train wreck? Let's wreck that train, baby. Let's wreck a train. Choo choo! Cheers, McGravy. Cheers. Oh, shit. Oh. 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 Yeah. Should have let that one cool for another few. So thanks for coming and hanging out with my super stony ass. And ramble on about hallucinations and whatever. If you need help, go get help. And if you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. And, just make sure you find an outlet and don't let it burst into destructive things, because life does go on, baby. I promise, life does go on. And yeah, if you like this and you want to see more of my stupid stony ass, you can like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you likes, and I will see you in the next one, babies. I love yous. Bye. Run, pre-roll, run. Wait, no, don't run. Come back here. I missed my will, cat. I mean. Where you be, little pea? He can't see me, 'cause he's in the other room. I don't even care if there's anything left on it. I don't want it. Oh, fuck. And thank you all for hanging out with my Stoney, taking too harsh at this.